My name's Jamin Goecker. I'm your first friend in Alaska. I'm an associate real estate broker, and obviously the main area that I focus on in Alaska is South Central, but there are a lot of cities in Alaska, and today we're going to be talking about some of the bigger ones, and I'm going to give you some generalizations on what these towns are like. Obviously, your experience may differ on a whole lot of factors that are just outside my control, but I'm going to give you just the overall gist of what these different towns are like living in, or just in general what they're like visiting, if that's the only experience that I do have. Now, before we get started though, do make sure that you subscribe and make sure you give this video a like and all that good stuff. It really does help the algorithm, and let's go and jump into today's video after you go ahead and get that done. First city that we're going to look at is Anchorage. Now, Anchorage is unique because it's kind of a Seattle light kind of a town. It has a bit more of a metropolitan feel to it. If you're going to go do any kind of shopping or go to any live performances, usually you're going to be going to Anchorage as opposed to like one of the smaller surrounding communities. And there's obviously going to be a lot more housing options, and there's going to be some areas that really do have a lot of personality, and there's going to be some areas where it is just very cut and dry, kind of a subdivision feel to it, and there's not a whole lot of uniqueness about some of these properties and these specific neighborhoods. Now, Anchorage, that's definitely one of the big drawing factors for it, is just that it is kind of the center for where a lot of people do work. And so if you're there, you know, that's a big convenience, and not having to commute very far. I mean, certainly not as far as if you were driving in from the Mat-Su Valley. So, you know, that's kind of what it's like living in Anchorage. Now, one city that's not too far away from Anchorage is actually Palmer, and I mentioned Palmer because it is almost the polar opposite of Anchorage. It is a small town. They are trying to remain a small town, and you just kind of walk the street there, and you just kind of, you can tell that's the vibe of the entire place. They have a lot of community activities that are really designed for, you know, families to get out there and enjoy themselves and go on, like the Colony Day parades. There's really still kind of a culture of the colony that they sent out here with the FDR's New Deal. And that's really how Palmer kind of got their start for the most part, and how they started developing as kind of an agricultural kind of an area. Agriculture, you know, it didn't become the main driving factor. It is a variable in Palmer, but it certainly didn't take off the way that it was hoped that it would. That being the case though, you still kind of have an agricultural vibe in Palmer, and it's you know, a great place to go if you're just looking for some kind of a day activity that, you know, it's going to be a pretty low-key environment. Now, Palmer's immediate neighbor is going to be Wasilla, and Wasilla is pretty different from Palmer, okay? It is a kind of a smaller town. You know, there's not a whole lot of people who like live in Wasilla proper, but there's a ton of people who travel through Wasilla constantly because of the Parks Highway. So it feels a lot busier than it actually is, and it is kind of becoming like the hub of the Mat-Su Valley, which does have like about 100,000 people who live there, so you do have a lot more amenities in Wasilla than you're going to have usually for a town of that size. And it definitely is trying to grow as quickly as possible, and kind of the challenge for Wasilla at this point is really just kind of dealing with the congestion with the traffic, because while there's not as many people as what you would find in somewhere like the lower 48, the infrastructure is still not set up for the amount of people that we do have, so it feels a lot busier than it actually is. And I've kind of spoken with Mike Brown, the Mat-Su borough manager, about this not too long ago on a video podcast. You can go check that out, but that's definitely one of the big challenges Wasilla has going forward. Wasilla, you know, it does have a sense of community there. You kind of have to look for it though. It's not as prominent as what you're going to find with Palmer. Eagle River is another kind of small town. Now, I say kind of small town because technically it's a suburb of Anchorage, but Eagle River kind of marches to its own tune in a lot of ways. And Eagle River is, you know, pretty unique in that it's close to the base, and it's also close to Anchorage. And so we do get a lot of people who live in Eagle River, but they do commute over to Anchorage or to military base J-Bear, and they just commute in like, I think it's like 10-15 minutes, so it's not that far. And we do get quite a few folks over here for that reason, and it kind of gets a reputation for that reason of just kind of being a low-key kind of a town. People kind of stick to themselves. There's definitely a sense of community. You have a lot of young families living here. You see a lot of businesses that are set up kind of serve kind of those families, and that's really good. And that's kind of Eagle River. You can you got everything that you need here. Might not be like the biggest variety of everything, but you do have everything that you do need in Eagle River, and you very rarely need to. Very rarely do you need to go to somewhere like Anchorage for anything that you might need. We're going to take a break real quick. For those of you who've been watching for a bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where I bring people in who've recently moved up here or been up here for a while, and kind of talk to them about their experiences of living up here, and just get from them the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything that they think about Alaska. So if that's something that you think you'd like to hear, then make sure you go follow the link to the podcast in the description section down below. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about some more towns in Alaska. All right, now, the rest of the towns that we're talking about, I don't have a whole lot of experience with actually living in these towns, nor do I really know anyone living there. I can kind of give you my experiences with them and the impressions that I've heard from other people who've spent a lot of time there. And one of the first ones I'm going to talk about is Talkeetna. And Talkeetna is kind of a small town. It's north of Wasilla and everything. It's a ways out there, and I really don't know much about it, honestly, which kind of feels like a missing piece of my act and everything, but I really don't know much about Talkeetna. I've been told it does have like a really, really hippie vibe, so if you are into that, if you're of the hippie mindset, then Talkeetna might be calling you. Willow is another one of those towns that I don't really know a whole lot about. I've driven through there obviously a number of times, just kind of getting around and recreating and driving through Hatcher Pass and everything. Willow kind of sticks to itself. They're really not trying to grow particularly quick. It's a lot of people who just want to be left the heck alone, and that's a good place to do it. It's one of those places where obviously the sled dogs, those are going to be really popular, and so if you don't like dogs, then that might be kind of a nettlesome area for you to live. But Willow, can't really say much about it beyond that. Now, the next city, Seward, I actually can say quite a bit about Seward. So I have actually spent a fair amount of time down in Seward, just for myself, kind of disconnecting a little bit from life and trying to go down there. I'd say once every 3 or 4 months for a couple days, just kind of take a deep breath and relax a little bit. So I'm fairly familiar with Seward. For the most part, they really do stick to themselves. And for the most part, the interaction with folks in Seward, they kind of just want you to spend money and get off their lawn. Like, that's kind of the impression that I've gotten from them. And it's kind of a community that kind of suffers from small town syndrome, where their attitude is, well, if you don't like that, someone's treating you like this just in a customer service environment, where else are you going to go? Like, that's kind of the attitude I have gotten from Seward. Not obviously all the people there, but that more often than not has kind of been the attitude I've gotten from people there. Now, in their defense, they do have a ton of people showing up on cruise ships and just absolutely overrunning the town on a pretty regular basis. And I mean, I do get that, but also without those cruise ships and those tourists coming in, you don't have a town. Okay, your economy does not operate without these people being here. So, maybe change your attitude is all I'm saying. That being said, I have also tried to purchase real estate down in Seward. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but did not quite work out. And I've heard of other people trying to buy property down in Seward, going all the way there, getting to the front lawn, and then the owner meeting the person out there and just telling them, oh, you're from Anchorage? No, I'm not going to sell from you. And it's like, dude, like, not a fair housing violation, but you're in bad company once you start doing shady stuff like that. So yes, Seward is absolutely beautiful. got some, obviously, some pretty well-founded criticisms, I guess I could say. I don't think they're coming to me anytime soon asking for tips on how they can improve, but, you know, being a little bit more receptive to people coming in would definitely be one of them if they were listening. All right, moving on. A little down the road from Seward, you do have the Kenai and Soldotna, which, I'm sorry guys, there's really not much difference between Kenai or Soldotna. Roast me all you want in the comments section. I'm not sure why we have to have two separate towns here. Maybe someone can explain that to me in the comment section. They are right next to each other. But anyway, yeah, really the big thing that Kenai and Soldotna has going for them, it's very, aviation is very big there. You know, you see planes flying over like every couple minutes over there. You have a lot of dip netters that'll show up during the salmon run, and that town also just gets overrun during the salmon season. And it's kind of a great place that's kind of base camp for getting out into the rest of the Kenai Peninsula, which the Kenai is just kind of the backyard that all Alaskans will go and play in. So it's a great environment for that. As far as actually living there, I not actually lived there much myself. Most people kind of stick to themselves. And the people I do know that have gone there, like just getting some property along the Kenai River is like the pristine thing that you want to do. It can get a little spendy trying to do that though. And so you have a lot of, you're starting to get a lot of snowbirds, where I actually heard somewhere that the majority of property owners there don't actually live there year round. And I'm sure that's to the great relief to the people over there year round. So they kind of just get their peace and quiet during the wintertime. They can snow machine and do all that and don't have all the rest of us tourists running around. But that's something to keep in mind about Kenai. Last but not least, let's talk about Homer. Now, Homer, for me, I actually really do enjoy Homer. I think it's got a lot of charm to it. It's beautiful and everything. Not as beautiful to me as Seward, which spent a lot of time knocking the people of Seward. The scenery is incredible there. Homer is, you know, beautiful. It's got access to like the halibut and all that, which they call themselves the halibut capital of the world, which, you know, who are they to just bestow that upon themselves? Like, who gives, like, imagine just the gall of that. But they are very pro-business. They have the space to develop and grow down there. They're at the very end of like the road going south on the main road system here in Alaska, and so they're known as the end of the road. And it's definitely kind of a tight-knit community down there. You have to spend a little bit of time to actually get integrated and kind of get in the club. But once you're there, I mean, you're there, and those relationships you can develop in that community, from what I've been told, is just absolutely incredible. But this has been my video kind of talking about the different towns in Alaska. I hope it's been useful. If it hasn't, then drop that in the comment section down below. Would love to hear your insights on one of, if not all of these communities, and see what your thoughts are. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.